Hello, and welcome back to our third and final segment on our recent trip to China. In this segment, we're going to explore Beijing, the capital city of China. Officially, the population of Beijing is around 22 million. Unofficially, and depending on who you are talking to at any given time, it could be as much as 29 million. But even at that astounding number, Beijing is still not the most populated city in China. That honor would go to Chongqing. It is not even the most second populated city in China. That title should go to Shanghai, with a population of 28 million officially. But irregardless of population, Beijing is the most important city in China, at least politically, as the capital and seat of government. I arrived in late September, about a week before one of China's biggest holidays, National Day, and as such, we stayed away from the typical tourist places like the Temple of Heaven, the Forbidden City, the Summer Palace, and, as one Chinese netizen termed it, the Great Crowded Wall of China. So what did we do? Well, we went to a few parks. We tried out the subway system. We did some shopping. And we did a lot of dining at non-peak hours. And we searched for and found the Peking duck. After the holiday, we braved the traffic and even went clubbing. Well, let's start with a little something about Beijing by telling you where we stayed. We stayed in Tangzhou, a neighboring city that is now actually the seat of the Beijing government, and we stayed at Song's mother's house in a retirement community. This retirement community is sort of self-contained with its own cafeteria, grocery store, and an exercise and activities center. The community is rather quiet, self-contained, and access-controlled, and a very comfortable environment for the people that live there. Now, when I say access-controlled, it is facial recognition, and Song had her features on the database. And one of the mornings we stayed there, we headed off to this park located on the Grand Canal Cultural Scenic Area. One inexplicable thing about these public works projects in China is they start them, they finish them, and then they never maintain them. An example would be this giant keyboard, which was new 3 years ago, and now it looks as ratty as can be. But regardless, this is a very nice urban space, away from the hustle and bustle of the streets, and is enjoyed and well utilized by the citizens of the area. The pagoda you see in the distance is in another park on the opposite side of the canal. The ancient styling of the pagoda is juxtaposed against the modern skyline of Tangzhou. In this park is a busy park populated with Tai Chi practitioners, runners, and more sedate walkers like us. A day or two later, and we hopped aboard the subway in search of the heart of Beijing. The subway system in Beijing is clean and one of the largest and longest subway systems in the world. Not as cheap as the buses, they are still the best way to get around the megalopolis of Beijing. While we didn't go to the Forbidden City in fear of the crowds, we did get close. This is near the Forbidden City and considered one of the old parts of Beijing. This area is crisscrossed by hutongs. Hutongs are the small alleyways and walled communities that make up Old Beijing. Some of the tiny alleyways and lanes are only wide enough for one person and cannot accommodate traffic of any sort. The hutong is disappearing gradually from Beijing as urbanization and a constant state of tear down then rebuilding is occurring in Beijing. Many shops grow up around and are located around the peripheries of the hutongs to service the dense population of people living there. From barber shops to food stalls, restaurants to liquor stores, to shopping of all types. You never have to leave the community to get almost anything you need. After expending a lot of energy in the hutongs, we hopped aboard the subway for one more ride back to the more modern part of town in the China Mall for lunch. Lunch today would be here at this restaurant on the 5th floor of the North Tower of the China World Mall for one of our favorite styles of Chinese meals, dim sum. We started out with this unctuous roasted barbecue pork belly, melt in your mouth good, had some shrimp dumplings, some interesting gelatin-wrapped vegetable dumplings, some pork-stuffed rice flour-wrapped Chinese tortillas, some delicious pork shao mai, and this outstanding roast goose. Some delicately flavored chicken meatballs in a soup, and these hot and spicy pork riblets. This wonderful roll-up called a golden sand shrimp rice noodle roll, some taro pastry puffs, and finished off the meal with some custard buns. Once more back on the train we went, each of us armed with our own transit pass. Rode our train to the station near home, and scanned our passes once more to exit, only to see the hundreds, perhaps thousands, of the small electric motorcycles that always populate the outside of the train station. Another morning, Song and I went grocery shopping at the local Wanda Mall. Outside the mall today, they had some vendors set up in stalls and some amusements to keep the kids busy, courtesy of B-Duck. Perhaps that means Beijing duck? But regardless, our reason for being there was to head to the basement underneath of Wanda for this ginormous grocery shopping space. I mean, this place had everything. As we walked through the store, we saw, well, everything. There was no shortage of food and an incredible variety of products. From chicken to the unidentifiable, to sausage and pork skin, to everything durian, sweets, cakes, bean cakes, of which we indulged and bought a few. This is one of the few places in the world where you'll find 5-spice tiger pattern chicken feet hanging between walnut cake and pitted plums. An endless variety of moon cakes, and a huge selection of prepared deli items. Lots of offal, spelled with an O, sausages of every variety, and this interesting and delicious looking chicken smothered with Szechuan peppercorns, ducks hanging, deboned pork trotters, chicken cooked every way you could imagine, pancakes, sweet and savory, Veggies, quail eggs, what looks like liver, and tripe of every description. Buns were steaming. Buns were baking. Little piggies squished into a plastic container, and even a bunch of pizza with fluorescent yellow-looking cheese. Raw meats of every cut and description. Your choice of live fish. Live crab. Shrimp swimming. And literally hundreds of crabs in bondage. Ginger, garlic. Vegetables and aromatics of all sorts. A huge selection of fresh fruits. And sort of overwhelmed by it all, we made a few selections, checked out, and headed upstairs to walk through the mall a bit. There we saw electric cars from unknown, at least to us, manufacturers, this robot mop that wanted to run over me, eventually facing me down.
Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated.
Shopping, shopping, shopping. And we even found a Chinese ghost. There was also plenty of food being prepared, fresh and to order. Some interesting wok skills on display. Watch this mass of peppers he throws in there. And after that, with our appetite piqued, we once more sought out the subway and took another ride to the China World Mall. Today we dined at a restaurant directly across from the one we had dined at previous. Once more, the food was being made to order. The inside of the restaurant had some interesting artwork and overlooked CCTV, or China Television's, main offices, affectionately known by Beijingers as Big Underwear. The menu, as with most Chinese restaurants, was rather extensive, and we opted for the house special fried rice, some very nice pork soup dumplings, and some nice crab soup dumplings, some delicious barbecue pork ribs, this unctuous melt-in-your-mouth pile of heaven, a slow-roasted pork belly that literally just melted in your mouth. The idea was to take a bit of the pork belly and a little bit of each one of the condiments you see there, put it on a bao bun, and at least in my case, scarf it down with the pork fat running down my arm and dripping off my elbow. To mitigate and cut that pork fat down a little bit, we opted for some spiral cut steamed bamboo shoot in a vinegar and garlic sauce that was bright and refreshing, and just what you needed after all that pork fat. And lastly, we finished off our meal with a custard bun and a nice black sesame bun. The next morning, and it was time for another park. Join us as we wander about this one that is located near, but not on, the Grand Canal Cultural Scenic Area that we had visited a few days prior. This is kind of common in Chinese parks, palaces, and other public spaces. Fake rocks. While some are real, most are concrete fabrications of rocks that the fabricators thought were pleasing to the eye. This park, even as late in the year as this was, still had plenty of blooming flowers, and the structures were very well maintained. The several bridges were obviously built using modern techniques in an old-fashioned style. If we had arrived a little bit later in the morning, we could have rented one of these small boats and just paddled around the small lake there. But as it was, we just continued our walkabout exploring the park. There was that elusive pagoda off in the distance, and I was assured by Song and her brother that we would visit that pagoda on another day. Spoiler alert, we never made it. Later that evening, we had friends coming to pick us up and take us clubbing. So we braved traffic for a trip that should have taken us about 45 minutes and instead took us 2.5 hours. Braved the crowds swarming the streets, and made our way to, of all things, the Blue Note Beijing. The Blue Note Beijing is an underground structure, and quite large as clubs go. This was also to be a dining and music experience. And while the Blue Note has a full bar service, be careful, China has an absolutely zero tolerance for drinking and driving. Since our friend Tintin and his mother had driven us there, we abstained for the night and instead dived into my chicken tacos, our Thai chicken wings, avocado and chicken nachos, and enjoyed a concert. Then it was time to leave the Blue Note behind and head back home. A day or two later, and it was time to go in search of Peking duck. So it was back to that subway again. And once more back to the China World Mall. Well, just a little bit about the China World Mall. It's big. Matter of fact, it's freaking huge. There is shopping of all sorts here, from tea houses to wine and wine, Chinese treat shops, fashion quote-unquote displays, superstar moms clubs that allow you to drop off the kiddies and go shopping, to DJI, the drone manufacturer's superstores, and unusual stores like Genelec studio monitors being sold as hi-fi speakers. Once more up to the 5th floor of the North Tower we went in search of our target venue featuring Peking duck. We would be meeting our friend here, Tintin, and treating him to lunch in this rather upscale restaurant. No, not here. This is Macau street food. And no, not here. This is more dim sum from a restaurant chain that claims to have a Michelin star restaurant under its umbrella. And not here. This is Lotus Thai. Yes, here, Hai Tang, a beautiful restaurant with Peking duck. We started out with some appetizers that included these beautiful kumquats and the squid ink black truffle soup dumplings. The taste of these was rather overwhelming in a way, sort of bitter and very earthy. But regardless, it was interesting. This mahu tofu was more to my taste, creamy, spicy, and delicious. The baby cabbage was well done, crunchy with a slightly bitter edge. But the star of the show was this baby that they showed off before carving, crispy, unctuous, melt in your mouth Peking duck. Peking duck is served with these condiments: oyster sauce, a bit of sugar, slices of cucumber, slivers of scallions, and haw jelly. Take all that, wrap it up in the paper-thin pancakes supplied, with a bit of the duck skin and a bit of the duck meat. Chow down and enjoy. After satiating ourselves with the duck, it was time to head back out into the mall and try to find something we spotted on the way in. Yes, after all that, we were still after dessert, but this time it was going to be a healthy dessert. This place specialized in all things avocado, including avocado ice cream. Here we are, sitting there wondering if that was really going to be a good thing. We took a good hard look at it before digging in and deciding, well, yes, it was a good thing. And after saying goodbye and parting ways with Tintin, it was back on the subway where you were warned: no smoking, no lying down, no food, and especially no swinging. Well, we knew it had to come, the last day in China. So what did we do? Song's cousin picked us up and we went to a park, still in Tongzhou, but another section of the Beijing Grand Canal cultural scenic area. This park was well maintained, and even though it was now October, it was still filled with blooming flowers. There were lakes with ducks swimming about, and even a full-blown amusement park that did cost you a bit extra to get into and enjoy the rides. So we just walked through the park with Song's cousin and his wife, enjoying the displays and our time there. There's that same pagoda, however this time rendered in flowers, and it was sitting next to a flower boat. There was even Bambi, and these beautiful weeping willows were everywhere. Well, having worked up that appetite, it was time for you-know-what, and we headed to a local restaurant where this time we had a bubbling pot of icy noodle soup, tender slices of slow-roasted pork, stir-fried beef and vegetables, a vegetarian potato dish, onion pancakes, and this big old stack of lovely lamb. And what's that I spy with my little eye? Well, yes, another Peking duck. After enjoying the artistry of the chef carving the duck at our table, and finding out this was a big duck and supplied well over twice as much duck than we had enjoyed at the previous restaurant. And while this restaurant was not a fancy one, food-wise, it was actually a step up. After that, it was off to bed. We had an early 4:30 wake up for our flight back home the next day. And so it was up before the sun and on to the Beijing Capital Airport once more, where we lounged around a bit before boarding our JAL flight, and we were off to Japan. On the way into Tokyo, we spotted Mount Fuji and landed at Tokyo International Airport, also known as Hanada. A 3-hour layover at Hanada, and it was time to board our American Airlines flight back home. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be kept up to date with new ones as they drop. And if you have the time and inclination, please check out some of our other videos. And stay tuned for more. We have new travel videos in the works, and I'm going to be dipping back into the archives to give you more of our past trips to China, Japan, and Thailand. Again, thank you for watching. And as always, safe and happy travels from T's Cruise and Travel Muse.